So as of recording this, Dwight Howard was just traded yesterday. He was traded to the Brooklyn Nets for the 45th pick in the NBA draft, a 2021 second round pick, Timofey Mozgov, and cash. In this video, I will be giving my thoughts on the trade and giving grades for each team. Starting with the Brooklyn Nets, let's discuss how they fared in this trade. Now, I've got to say, Sean Marks is doing a pretty good job as GM of the Nets, in my opinion. I'm not as in favor of this trade as I was with the D'Angelo Russell trade or the DeMarre Carroll trade, but I do still like this one. With this trade, they gain enough cap space for 2 max contracts in the summer of 19. While I like this, I just feel like it's a bit early to be spending max money. I wouldn't be surprised if they are able to get some big name free agents, as Brooklyn is a fairly large market team. The problem is, I don't think they'll get the biggest guys, and I think that they'll just settle for the lesser name guys and overpay them. Now, the best free agents in 2019 are most likely going to be Kawhi Leonard, provided he declines his player option, Kyrie Irving, provided he declines his player option, Kevin Love, Jimmy Butler, Klay Thompson, or Paul Millsap, provided the Nuggets decline his team option. While I could see the Nets signing one of these guys, I don't see them getting two. I think that they'll overpay for a player that is just below the level of these guys. People like Nikola Vucevic, Chris Middleton, provided he declines his player option, Enes Kanter, provided he accepts his player option this summer and doesn't sign an extension, or Tobias Harris could all be options that I think the Nets would overpay for. I think they might offer max or near max contracts to these players when they are not deserving of it. However, just looking at the trade for now, the extra cap space is huge. Now, most salary dumps, like the DeMarre Carroll trade, require a team to get rid of a late first round pick, but the Nets are able to get rid of Mozgov with only 2 second round picks in cash, and if they sign guys in 2019, their 2021 second round pick won't be worth much. With all that being said, I still have some concerns with the trade. This year is the first time the Nets will actually have their first round pick in a while, but with this trade, I think they'll be too good to get a top 5 pick in the draft. The Nets don't really have a good team, but this past season they were able to only be the 8th worst team in the NBA. Some teams that finished worse than the Nets are probably going to get better, like the Chicago Bulls, Memphis Grizzlies, and maybe the Phoenix Suns as well. With Howard, I think the Nets win enough games so that they move down in the draft 1 or 2 picks. While this may not seem like much, it actually is. In the 2017 draft, the difference between Dennis Smith, a likely future All-Star, and players like Zach Collins, Malik Monk, or Luke Kennard was only 1, 2, or 3 picks. Also, with the addition of Howard, Jarrett Allen's minutes will be significantly limited, which is unfortunate as he had a really impressive rookie season. Still, though, all in all, I gotta give the Nets an A- on this trade. The loss of the second round picks won't be that bad, and I think the extra cap space more than makes up for that. Now for the Charlotte Hornets. I've seen a lot of people saying that the Nets fleeced the Hornets, but I really disagree with that. The trade on paper may seem terrible for the Hornets, but in reality, it's pretty good. The Hornets finally leave the dreaded space of mediocrity they've been in for the past few years, which is the best thing that they could have done. To back this up, let's take a look at the Chicago Bulls and Indiana Pacers. The Bulls were the 8th seed 2 years ago, and Jimmy Butler was the only piece they had. Butler was good enough to lead the Bulls to a playoff spot, but their team just wasn't good enough to have playoff success. Because of this, the Bulls traded him to the Wolves. At the time, this trade seemed awful, but now it looks great for the Bulls. The Bulls were able to get back Lauri Markkanen, who's looking fantastic, and they finally have a direction as a franchise and are one of the better young teams in the NBA. Now, the Pacers are a bit different, but they were in a similar boat. They finished 1 game ahead of the Bulls at the 7th seed. Paul George was good enough to lead the team to a playoff spot, but could never find playoff success. The Pacers then eventually dealt him to the Thunder for Victor Oladipo and Domantas Sabonis, which at the time looked like one of the worst trades of the decade. However, this trade now looks like an absolute steal for the Pacers, as they got a potential MVP candidate and a solid role player for a guy that they couldn't win with. Now, of course, I know Dwight Howard is not nearly as good as Butler or George, but this trade does give the Hornets a direction. This trade likely means that Kemba is going to be traded, which would be great for the franchise. Don't get me wrong, Kemba is a great player, but he can't even take the Hornets to the playoffs, let alone lose in the first round. This trade also gives Frank Kaminsky and Cody Zeller more minutes to let them develop. The second round picks they get probably won't be anything special, but you never know. If the Nets fail to sign any big name guys, the 2021 second round pick should be top 10. The 45th pick in this draft is projected to be Omari Spellman by Bleacher Report, who is a 6'9 power forward with a 7'2 wingspan, which instantly makes him a threat in the paint on defense and has the potential to be a great pick and roll man. He averaged 11 points and 8 rebounds and shot 47.6% from the field and an absurd 43.3% from 3 as a power forward at Villanova. Out of the 8 players on Villanova who played at least 400 minutes, he was 5th in offensive win shares, 2nd in defensive win shares, 4th in win shares, 6th in offensive box plus minus, 1st in defensive box plus minus, and 5th in box plus minus. The only real problem I have with this trade is that I just can't think that the Hornets wouldn't be able to get back a bit better of a package from the Nets. I would have expected them to get the 40th pick instead of the 45th pick, and maybe even a player like Isaiah Whitehead. All in all, though, this was a pretty good trade, and I'd give it a B+. It would be higher, but again, I just don't think that the Hornets couldn't have gotten a better pick from the Nets. So that's my take on the Dwight Howard trade. I think it was a pretty fair trade, and I'm looking forward to what the Nets do with all the cap space they're going to have. Leave a like if you've enjoyed, subscribe if you're new, and leave a comment what you think of this trade.